As I begin this, I want you to know this really wasn't the route I was planning on going, focusing so much on prison-related news stories. I've got a ton of other videos that I want to share with you guys, and I always like to mix it up. You guys know I like doing my little prison role plays as of late. I've got a few of those in the bammer.
You know, I couldn't help but notice you were checking my sack out. Wait. That didn't sound right.
But I understand that's not everybody's cup of tea. And even though these videos may not get tons of views, they're definitely debatable topics that people seem to enjoy sharing their opinions on. And it also seems people enjoy hearing what I have to say in relation to these stories, these topics, these headlines as well. Like I said, it wasn't my intention to keep going this direction, but it's like every day I'm running across a story that I feel like I really ought to share. And today is another example of that. If you think about some of the stories that I've covered as of late, the Virginia Parole Board getting fired, just yesterday sharing a story about a kid at 14 years old who was sentenced to life and how he won't be eligible for parole until after he served 40 years. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about that. Well, today's story is definitely in a similar wheelhouse, except maybe a whole lot different. Let me share this headline with you first that says, "Family says a prisoner's pardon has been rolled back by Youngkin administration." Now, obviously, the story is taking place in my state as well, here in Virginia. And again, totally different from some stories that we've covered in the past. Speaking of the previous parole board under the previous gubernatorial administration, where a lot of prisoners were making parole. Well, again, this headline says that under Glenn Youngkin's administration, this particular prisoner in this story, their parole has been rolled back. Let me start with this. Imagine being locked up for probably decades, at least a decade, and realizing that you got an opportunity to make parole, again, under the last governorship, because of parole changes that were taking place with our last governor. You're seeing other prisoners making parole. You've got an opportunity to go up for parole yourself. Because of these changes, because of whatever, this corrupt parole board, whatever it is, maybe you're legitimately eligible. You get the opportunity to go up for parole and you get granted that parole. You're just simply waiting at this point for them to tell you, B&B, pack your shit, you're going home. And then all of a sudden, there's a new governor, a new sheriff in town, the new attorney general. And all of a sudden, your parole status changes from granted to awaiting review. Man, I can't even begin to imagine the mental fuckery that would play on a guy's psyche. I can't even imagine what it would feel like to know that you get an opportunity to come home and all of a sudden that rug gets snatched out from underneath of your feet. In the past, in these previous videos, you've heard me go very hard on the headlines, feeling a certain type of a way. In this story, I feel the exact opposite. I sympathize with the guy who got this parole snatched away. This was friendly fire right here. This guy got what I feel like, and we're going to get deeper into this story, what this guy's locked up for, how much time has he served. We're going to get deeper with this. But I feel like, hey, it's just the way the cookie crumbles, man. You got caught up, unfortunately, in all of this change that was taking place with the new governor and the new attorney general saying we're firing the entire parole board and we're going to investigate everything. And what did I tell you when we addressed that video the first time? And when I tell you that you ain't making parole, you ain't making parole. That shit's dead. Nobody is making parole. And sadly and unfortunately for this guy, he's a perfect example of that. Now let's talk about this story more. Who are we talking about? What is he locked up for? Let me introduce you to this guy right here. A 46-year-old man from Williamsburg, Ransom Ronnie Grandel, whose family learned through online records Mr. Grandel had been granted parole. The story would say that they thought he would soon return home. But 3 weeks later, the story would say, they learned state officials say he wasn't really pardoned. And for now, he will remain in prison. Now, the excuse that they would get as to why and what the fuck happened, you know, I don't really believe that to be the truth. So, of course, the family would have questions. How did it say this guy was granted parole and now it says that he's awaiting review? Well, the response the family would get, our office is in receipt of the pardon petition you submitted in October of 2021. Recently, we had an error in our computer system that caused a portal to temporarily show your petition with a status of granted. Your pardon is still under review and has not been granted. I'm sorry for the confusion and any heartache this may have caused. Best, the pardon department. Damn, I didn't even know they had one of them joints. Thought it was just the parole board. Can you imagine? You petition for parole. They grant that. They take it away. And their excuse is, oh, we had an error in our computer system that magically caused everybody's parole eligibility to say granted. You are toying with people's lives at this point. Can you imagine this dude locked up right now, wherever he's at? All his homeboys, all the people he kicks it with. Hey, yo, you getting ready to go home, Grandel? Hey, you getting ready to go home, Stick? But in his mind, he knows he just received that news saying that this was all bullshit, and it's even more bullshit what they're saying is the reason why. Some sort of a computer error. Oh, hell no. I can't imagine this dude is in the best of spirits right now, and I wouldn't want to get on this dude's bad side. Argue with this dude if you want to. Joe, you're certainly showing a lot of sympathy in this situation. I absolutely feel that. Let's go ahead and talk about what this guy was locked up for. His case dates back to November of 1995. A suspected drug dealer got into a shootout with a James City County police officer following a traffic stop. They was holding court in the street. He was shooting at the cop. Bung, 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 bung. The cop was shooting back. Bung, 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 bung. In the midst of this wild, wild west, OK Corral shootout taking place, you got to think to yourself, Joe, how many people died? Especially considering people got shot up. Not only did Mr. Grandel, the prisoner, get shot, the police officer got shot as well. There was some friendly fire that took place as well. In the exchange of gunfire, both men, as well as a 17-year-old girl, who was asleep in her bed, it doesn't say asleep, it just says who was in her bed, was struck by gunfire. Officer Pat Murray, suspect Ransom Grandel, and a 17-year-old girl caught in the crossfire were all shot, but all three survived. Now, I'm sure we could find out, but I don't have the information right here, who fired the shot that struck the young lady. Was it from this guy who's locked up who just got parole snatched away from him, or was it from the police officer? Which gun fired the shot that hit the 17-year-old girl? That's a question I don't have the answer for. This story doesn't say. But no matter which party's bullet struck that 17-year-old girl, and even if it was the police officers, how crazy is it to think that it's still this dude, Ransom Ronnie Grandel's fault? Well, you the one that got into the shootout with the police. The cop was just trying to kill you. And you're the reason why he shot the 17-year-old girl. I hate to say it like that, but you know that's the truth. And because of that, this dude would get convicted and sent to prison for a life sentence plus 49 years. In a case like this, where nobody died, y'all both was playing Wild Wild West out in the street, nobody got killed. You're going to give this dude football numbers, life plus 49 years? I truly feel like that's a tad bit excessive. What charges did this guy have? It doesn't say, but I can all but guarantee attempted capital murder, because capital murder is the charge that you catch if you shoot and kill a police officer. So I'm sure he had attempted capital murder, attempted murder, malicious wounding, shooting into an occupied dwelling, and they smoked him. I don't know whether he took a jury trial. I don't know whether he took a bench trial. I don't know whether he took a plea deal where he was, hey, look, plead guilty because they're going to smoke your boots. And he tried to plead guilty and they still smoked his boots. See, initially, when the parole story broke, sorry, I had to consult my notes right there to remember this guy's name. Initially, when the parole story first broke, a story written by Pulitzer Prize finalist Tim Eberly of the Virginia Pilot, the story was written, I truly believe, for stories like this guy's. You know, a guy that did have some serious charges. Yeah, damn right. Attempted capital murder. I can see that carrying life. I can certainly see that, but life with the possibility of parole. And again, when this took place, this was 1995. This dude was definitely under old law. Law changed in 1997. We went from old law to new law. Old law meant you had to serve 65% of your time before you were eligible for parole. A life sentence is considered 20, 25 years, something along those lines. They gave this dude life plus 49 years. I truly feel like that was a bit too excessive. That's my personal belief. You can disagree if you want to. Please comment down below. Let me know how you feel. And this guy gets granted parole. Now, unfortunately, it's during a time when there's 7 or 8 high-profile cases of people getting released from prison who have way worse situations than this guy. Yeah, he did shoot a cop. The cop shot him too. I'm not saying he was right or justified at all in what he did, but what I am saying is nobody died. As I share this, a smidgen of me starts to question, well, was it really all that excessive, the amount of time that they gave him? But regardless, for this guy to get granted parole and to have that parole snatched away from him, regardless how you feel about that, whether he deserved a second chance out here in the world or not, it is interesting to note, especially considering everything that's taken place thus far. Tim Eberly writes a story in the Virginia Pilot a couple of years ago. Can't remember when that story came out. Tim Eberly writes the story that lights the fire under the ass of the parole board. The parole board says we got to start making some changes. The governor says that. Adrian Bennett, who would become the head of the parole board, says it. They start releasing people at a frantic pace. There's a report that says over 90-something violent offenders were released in a 1 month or 2 month time span. A gubernatorial election is upcoming, talking back when it was. Glenn Youngkin says, hey, if I win day one, I'm firing the entire parole board. There's so much scandal and controversy. There's a whistleblower who's now suing for $11 million for wrongful termination just because she said, hey, look, is what this parole board doing okay? Should somebody look into this? And they fired her for that. This guy, Ransom Ronnie Grandel, is 46 years old right now. How old was he back in 1995? My brain's not sharp enough to do that math. Please comment down below and let me know. Was he a juvenile? If he wasn't, he was only in his early 20s for sure. I feel like dude should have got that chance. But like I said, when they fired that parole board and the new attorney general said we're going to investigate everything, that shit pumped the brakes completely on anybody who got caught up in that proverbial crossfire of these major changes coming down the pike. The story made the news. I don't know if necessarily that's going to change anything. It seems like the guy's got a really good support system out there. And it's my personal belief, not knowing this guy at all, but knowing that I've seen guys come home. Banky, Jew-Man, Darnell Phillips, guys who have served a lot of time and who did make parole, who deserved that opportunity at parole, be successful. It's my belief that this dude really could be a productive member of society. I would hope that for him if some kind of miraculous way he does get that parole. But with the fact that they're saying it was a computer error, it's almost like they've already covered the tracks enough to say you was never really granted parole. And because of that, there's a high likelihood, especially now, that you never will be. Sad, sickening to think about. And again, can't even imagine what this guy's feeling and thinking, knowing that you were this close to getting a second chance at freedom, a new opportunity at life, and that shit's gone now. That's all I got on this. I'll be curious to see what you guys have to say, so please leave a comment down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like as well. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace.